In recent decades, theologians have begun to reinterpret ancient prophecies in light of new global realities. The Second Coming, once understood primarily in literal terms, trumpets, clouds, and divine judgment, is now often viewed through symbolic and metaphorical lenses. For example, some scholars argue that the return of Christ may not necessarily involve a physical appearance, but a spiritual awakening across humanity, a renewed commitment to love, justice, and divine principles. Others maintain a more traditional stance, interpreting current geopolitical events as direct fulfillments of biblical warnings. Globalization has also influenced these discussions. As cultures and belief systems intertwine, Christian eschatology faces both challenge and opportunity. On one hand, competing worldviews question the supremacy of any one religious narrative. On the other, the message of redemption and hope becomes accessible to a broader audience than ever before. Debates flourish online and in academic halls. Should the Church modernize its teachings? Has humanity misunderstood the nature of the Second Coming for centuries? Can prophecy coexist with scientific progress? These questions do not seek easy answers. Instead, they fuel the search for deeper understanding, a pursuit that is, in itself, an act of faith. Beyond the prophecy, the importance of hope. In the end, prophecy is not merely about prediction, it's about preparation, not just for the end, but for life. Amid the shadows of uncertainty, the Bible repeatedly reminds us of one unwavering truth: hope. From Genesis to Revelation, the message is clear. God is not absent. He is present, in our sufferings and our celebrations, in our doubts and in our convictions. The Second Coming, regardless of how or when it occurs, invites us to focus not on fear, but on faith. Not on chaos, but on Christ. Not on escape, but on engagement. With the world, with our neighbors, with our own souls. For some, this means committing to prayer. For others, it means fighting for justice, feeding the hungry, comforting the grieving. Every act of love becomes a preparation. Every moment of grace becomes a prophecy fulfilled. Because maybe, just maybe, the Second Coming is not only a future event. Maybe it's also a present invitation. Conclusion. Living in the light of prophecy. In a world overwhelmed by news alerts, shifting morals, and unanswered questions, the prophecy of the Second Coming remains a lighthouse on the horizon. It doesn't remove the storm, but it guides the ship. To live in the light of that prophecy is to live with intentionality, to embrace the mystery without abandoning reason, to cultivate a heart of readiness, not rooted in fear, but in love. The message for modern believers is not to wait idly, but to walk boldly, to turn prophecy into purpose, to allow ancient words to breathe new life into today's world. And so, whether Christ returns in fire and glory or in the quiet transformation of hearts, may we be found ready. The prophecy of the Second Coming in modern times. Exploring faith, fear, and hope in a changing world. The clock of history ticks steadily forward, yet for millions around the world, an ancient promise continues to echo louder than ever: the return of Jesus Christ. For over 2 millennia, believers have clung to this hope, interpreting wars, earthquakes, plagues, and celestial signs as harbingers of the great event foretold in scriptures. But what does this prophecy mean in the context of the modern world? A world saturated with technology, global communication, and scientific inquiry. This video invites you to step into a powerful exploration of the Second Coming, not merely as a future event, but as a living prophecy that stirs hearts, ignites faith, and challenges our understanding of time, truth, and divine purpose. In an age where faith often collides with reason and tradition with progress, how are we to interpret the signs? What if the end is not only near, but already unfolding around us? Signs of the times? In times past, biblical prophecies were read in candle-lit rooms by those who gazed fearfully at the sky. Today, they're streamed through smartphones and debated in podcasts. Yet the essence remains unchanged: the yearning to understand the divine timetable. 1. Global pandemics and the plague of uncertainty. When the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe, it not only brought illness and death, but a renewed sense of spiritual urgency. For many, it evoked the imagery of pestilence mentioned in the book of Revelation. Could such global calamities be the very birth pains Jesus referred to in Matthew 24? 2. Technology and the rise of the beast. Artificial intelligence, surveillance systems, genetic engineering. Modern science has made the impossible possible. Yet with these advancements comes a haunting question. Are we unknowingly laying the groundwork for the fulfillment of dark apocalyptic visions? Some interpret the mark of the beast not as a literal sign, but as a metaphor for the digital control of human lives. 3. Social unrest and the shaking of nations. Rising political divisions, wars, climate crisis, and moral decline have caused many to believe that humanity stands at the precipice of a final reckoning. From the streets of Jerusalem to the heart of Silicon Valley, the sense of unease is palpable. Is this the unraveling before the return of the King? Apocalyptic literature. Windows to eternity. The Bible is rich in prophetic language. Daniel's visions, Ezekiel's wheels, Revelation's beast and dragon. But these are more than poetic symbols. They are cosmic signposts. Today's theologians continue to unravel these riddles, trying to decode the metaphors for a modern audience. Apocalyptic literature invites readers to see beyond the physical, to imagine a world where spiritual forces wage war behind the veil of reality. It challenges us not just to prepare for the end, but to reflect on the purpose of our present. Com base no roteiro proposto. Aqui está a sequência, mantendo o estilo reflexivo, envolvente e profundo. The Second Coming and Individual Faith, Conte. Throughout the ages, faith has been both a shelter and a storm. For believers today, reflecting on the Second Coming can trigger both deep comfort and quiet unease. The idea that Christ may return at any moment encourages a life lived with purpose and intention. Yet it also raises questions. Am I ready? Have I lived according to the teachings I claim to believe? In modern society, where distractions abound and the pace of life accelerates relentlessly, such reflections often get lost in the noise. But the prophecy calls for pause, a moment to recalibrate the soul. Some believers find peace in preparation, not a frantic fear-driven preparation, but a gentle readiness, marked by acts of compassion, justice, and forgiveness. Others struggle, overwhelmed by the magnitude of divine judgment. For them, the prophecy is a mirror, revealing not only the world's condition, but their own spiritual journey. This internal dialogue, whether filled with clarity or clouded by doubt, is essential. Faith, after all, is not static. It evolves, matures, questions, and sometimes even breaks, only to rebuild itself stronger. The Second Coming invites each person to explore their individual relationship with God, stripped of tradition, expectation, or fear, and instead clothed in authenticity.